live.
So
I'm talking. We will give it a couple. Okay, perfect. Thank you. Excellent. Welcome to the April board meeting of the Newfoundland and Labrador English School Districts. Welcome to the trustees and staff and our support people from St. John's. I'd just like to specifically welcome Sarah Byrne. She's going to be our police regulator for us and the way we conduct our business this afternoon. So I think everyone around the table should be very afraid to make sure that they behave and do the appropriate thing, which we don't normally have a problem with, Sarah, at all. So that is a good thing. Well, can I get a motion to adopt the agenda as presented? Moved by Tom, seconded by John George. All in favor? Motion carries. Next piece is the consideration of the minutes from the board meeting of March 30th, 2021. Just to re-advise everyone who's tuning in to us over the virtual network that all the support documentation has gone out to all trustees. So we've already had the opportunity to go and review the materials and through our study sessions. So are there any errors or omissions in the minutes? Hearing none, can I get a motion to, so we're going to move by Wintz, seconded by Ray Bennett, to accept the minutes as presented. All in favor of the motion? Those against? Motion is carried. Thank you very much. The next piece of business is business arising. There's no business arising from the minutes. We tend to deal with it through our director's reports and other vehicles. So next item on our agenda is director report from our CEO and Director Tony.
Thank you, Chair. Director's report, April 24th, 2021. So on the agenda, we'll cover Kinderstart registration, a few slides on deep learning, as well as discuss scenario 2 for high schools. So firstly, Kinderstart. Online registration gets underway in early May for all children starting kindergarten in the 2022-2023 school year. So in other words, that's what we call Kinderstart 2021-2022. Children must be 5 years of age on or before December 31st, 2022. Families will need the child's MCP number with the expiration date, an email address to receive electronic confirmation of registration, a contact phone number, an emergency contact phone number, and an internet-ready device to complete the process. The dates, Monday, May 10th, Tuesday, May 11th, for Central Region, Western Region, and Labrador. On Wednesday, May the 12th, and Thursday, May 13th, for Avalon Region, which includes St. John's Metro. Registration will begin at 9 a.m. and will be ongoing for both English and early French immersion programs simultaneously. And for more information, you can visit our website, www.nlasc.ca. Next, we'll discuss the resumption leading into our Scenario 2 and blended learning model. As noted at the last board meeting, in-class instruction resumed on March 18th for all K-9 students on the Avalon, joining with the rest of the province. At that time, most high school students were learning online, some 14,000, including those previously in Scenario 2. On April 14th, the district implemented a blended in-class online learning model. We call that Scenario 2. And this is the approach for the majority of high school students. This model is designed to support in-person connections to enhance student engagement while continuing to adhere to public health guidance. It is not, however, expected that teachers provide the same level of online instruction as experienced under Scenario 3. Under Scenario 2, students attend school on alternate days to reduce the number of students in class at one time. Those who are not physically in class on a given day continue their learning from home. Scenario 2 has, however, been modified to allow the students at home to connect virtually with teachers and classmates for at least a portion of each class. Now, this does not mean that teachers have to juggle two different education delivery models each day, but rather one blended in-class and online education delivery model. There are different blended learning options and approaches within the model, and teachers have, of course, the flexibility to determine what works best for their classrooms and their subject areas. Meanwhile, online instruction will not continue as it did under the full-time Scenario 3 model. Therefore, students cannot opt to attend online only. In order for the blended learning model to be most effective, students must attend class when they are scheduled to do so. So, to support high school students and teachers, the district offered 2 days of professional learning and preparation to all schools moving into Scenario 2 blended learning. Teachers were directed to our district professional learning site, and they were encouraged to continue their learning using asynchronous resources featuring local teachers. Schools were supported during these days by program specialists who offered individual and small group sessions and Q&A sessions. Program specialists will continue their support of teachers and are available as we go forward. So under Scenario 2, there's, again, to summarize, there's no option to attend online only. And this is really important. Now, that might happen from time to time, and there may be benefits derived from it when a student cannot attend in school physically. But really, to reiterate, teachers aren't expected to deliver 2 different learning models, so this is blended, and the whole learning design requires you to be, for maximum benefit for students, to be in attendance when they're assigned to be in attendance. There just doesn't exist the resources to provide full online and full in-class instruction. We just at this point in the year, with the amount of time remaining, those are limitations that we're operating under. So we really want to alleviate some concerns. We are hearing from students, and we always like to hear from students, about preparation for post-secondary. If there's any comfort in what we faced this year, is that we've done it with others. Every jurisdiction in Canada and around the world have faced similar challenges. There are some individual differences. But in terms of Newfoundland and Labrador, we have been really fortunate, owing to the excellent advice from our medical authorities and the commitment of all Newfoundland and Labradorians to do what is required under a pandemic situation. We were able to avoid any type of massive disruption to our system right up until February. So we've been able to maximize in-class instruction. We've also been in discussions with our post-secondary institutions here, our partners in learning as they go forward after grade 12. And we've had some really good conversations. The leaders of those organizations have both Dr. Timmons and Ms. Kidd and others understand and appreciate the situation that students find themselves in this year and next year. They have worked with us to provide some messaging for graduating students, which I know we showed during our last online public meeting. But I think we should just talk about that a little bit more. I'll just show the uptake here. So this was a joint project with CNA and MUN and ourselves, where we did display some messaging, and I won't go through it all now. It is available on our website. Up to this point, there's over 5,000 views, and I would like any student or any parent to take advantage and look at those messaging. Subsequent to that, we've been dealing with the Newfoundland and Labrador Association of Career Colleges, and similarly, this governing body that representing some 14 institutions in our province have relayed similar messages. In fact, we're meeting with them later this week. So suffice to say that the post-secondary institutions in our province are well aware of the situation. They've had to deal with it themselves this year, and they will do everything that they possibly can in tandem with us to ensure a smooth transition from high school into post-secondary. With respect to Scenario 2, I'm going to just play a short video with some teachers who are going to comment. We interviewed a few teachers and one student just on the Scenario 2 model.
lots of, it's really nice to see you. I'm so glad I can talk to you again. Lots of that, like the personal connection, the student-teacher piece, definitely, that's a positive. Blended learning is definitely important because we need to have the connection with our students. And if we are virtual, it's not quite the same as if we are in person and able to sit down with them and have a discussion. Just seeing expressions on their faces, especially when, the cameras are usually off and the microphones are usually off. When they come through the door in the morning, you get a much better read on them. For example, the student that's in my homeroom, but I don't actually teach a course to, came through the door yesterday crying. And I hadn't seen her in weeks, and I just said, oh my gosh, meaningful, and I would have never known there was anything going on in her life if we were still virtual. But, gave her a granola bar, we sat back, we had a chat, everything kind of came together for her by the end of the day, sort of thing. So those moments cannot happen if we're just online and not able to catch the things that we can catch in person.
For the most part, they're happy to be here. They're happy to be here. They like the normalization of it, getting back into routine. And I find for some of them, they've said that the at-home distractions, whether they're just like their phone or whatever, aren't at play. And I'm finding as a whole, they're working quite diligently in school. I mean, we did the best we could to maintain them, but there is something to be said for actual human, physical, looking at, talking and having that contact piece, right? I did have great discussions in the online scenario 3 in the breakout rooms. But for the large part, I was talking to an icon. So that does make it is nice to see them. And, it's a funny thing, but like humor and tone just transcend better in a room. Like I didn't joke as much online because you don't know if it's going to fall flat and there's like no reception. So you're always having good conversations, but everything's very like linear and straightforward. Whereas in the room, they can too be more themselves. You can tell a joke. You can see people like relax in the room. So, and there is something to be said as well when you're instructing or giving them feedback, like legit looking at their expression to see if they get it. Because all they say online is thank you, right? I mean, they might say something different, but largely you're just giving that feedback over and over and they're responding to it and you're ascertaining the knowledge based on what they're writing in response. But, obviously that's why we teach, right? To come in and meet with them. And I mean, you just get another layer.
I mean, for me personally, I like to have that interaction with them. As a science teacher, I like to do a lot of hands-on activities. So we're able to do labs and, they get a lot more from it doing it than if I send them to a website where they have to do a simulation. It's just not the same. So I definitely do see the positives from it. The students, it's been a struggle with them, especially the first time we did this, because they didn't really like it. They want it to be either one or the other. They want it to be fully online or fully back in the building. But they're starting to warm up to it. And I think it has a lot to do with maybe, my friend is not in my group or that sort of thing. So they're working through all of those things. But they are starting to come around a bit. So there is definitely positives and advantages for them being here in the building. They can see their teachers, they can ask me questions where somebody may not feel comfortable enough to write me an email or turn on their mic because they don't like to do that. Or in my experience here in our staff, they will use the chat box in the Google Meet, but they don't like to turn on their mic and they certainly don't want to turn on their cameras. So it's better to have them here.
Now, whether or not they're active participants or not, right? Now, I mean, keeping it real, I have noticed a slight decline in their amount of work when at home. So they very much, as before when we were in that pure online routine, like they were always working diligently online, like always being, but now I find that they're working quite hard in school, but it's dissipating a bit. And when we offer them the opportunity to work asynchronously, sometimes that is becoming code for like log off. So like in my classes, I think we're humming along fine. I had to make, usually I'm a fan of having, main work they do and a project on the side. They're kind of ebbing and flowing in and out. But in 3 and now in 2 as well, I've reduced that a little bit and just focused on the quality, right? More on the communication, the feedback piece, and making sure they do a good job of what they have. And then a bit of time to sort of also decompress, relax, turn, and actually speak to someone. That's one thing I've noticed coming back to scenario 2. They're very quiet. And I can only speak to my experience, but just a little bit of time offline. Like when they're sitting there, their instinct is to grab their phones and just to, hide in that world, and I've kind of made a little bit of a push just to kind of engage them and talk to them as a little bit too. Just a little snapshot. For the students, this is preferable. I believe, right? I think they're getting more from it when they're here. I think they're re-engaging with their friends. I think there's more normalcy. This is the way life in society actually works, right? I mean, hopefully. I think we're doing just fine. I think we're doing our students a good service when we're here.
It's a positive. In terms of the lesson structure and the actual learning, I don't know if they've settled into that yet. And in fairness, like, I had one group in front of me today, and that would have been only the second or third time that they've been in front of me since break. So it hasn't been a long time for them to adjust yet and really get into a groove. I feel like by the end of this week, they might have more of a routine set and they're going to feel more settled.
Hi, I'm Shauna Brown. I'm in grade 10, and some of the benefits of blended learning are that you get perks for both online and in-class learning. For online, you get to sleep in on the days that you don't have to go to school physically, and you get more time to yourself because you don't have to get up as early, and when you're done in class, done your work, most times and you're done for the day, so you can go on and do your own thing until the next class. Some of the benefits of in-class learning, even part-time, is that you do still get face-to-face conversations, and a lot of times that's still good to be able to have with your teachers, because sometimes it makes things more clear, and you still get to talk and socialize with your friends at school. So these are some benefits to the blended learning.
Okay, just some commentary directly, and you can always rely on teachers for candor and especially student voice for candor. We realize that everything is not perfect, that this is going to get better as it goes. It is a major disruption. The fact that we were able to do it within 2 days of the Easter break speaks very highly of the professional learning team at the district, but I got to say, hats off to the professionalism, ingenuity, creativity, and adaptability of our teachers. They've time and time again delivered throughout this particular crisis, in a worldwide crisis, and I'm very proud of our educators who are amongst the very best in all the world, and they've proven it time and time again, and they'll prove it again this time. We'll monitor, we'll support, but it is where we are right now. It is the best we can do with respect to in-school learning within medical guidance, and that will be our situation. We will maintain this posture until such time as things would relax. But there is still a significant portion left in the school year, and we urge our students to take full advantage of the in-school learning opportunity and to also take advantage of the time when you're at home asynchronously. There is rich resources for you to tap into, and we need you to do that because we really, really do care about your academic future and your wellness. So, be a little bit easy on yourself, teachers and students. We don't have to cover or complete every single exercise that are in the learning outcomes. What we have to do is focus on the learning that'll put you in good stead for what comes next, the next grade level or post-secondary. Just a few examples, just a couple of pictures. This is Holy Trinity High, and a group of students coming back, and very happy, the teacher very happy to greet them. And the next slide is, so this is an example, maybe of a different departure from the blended learning where it's continuous, where this is split over 2 days because it's a lab. So again, there's going to be variety in this, but at O'Donnell High, the teacher is really happy for her students to be doing reduced numbers, allow them to do a full lab on titration, which is a very important lab. If anyone's gone through the chemistry program or been a chemistry teacher, we all know about titration. So students are loving it. And that'll be, of course, in this particular example, replicated over a 2-day period. And another example, this one coming to us from Principal Trevor Taylor, He's the principal of Fogo Island Central Academy, and the students are demonstrating doing things a little bit differently. The bottom line is there are multiple different options to make this work, and again, I reiterate, teachers are using their autonomy and professional judgment to be creative to make this happen. And in this case here, the class was joined virtually by Nicole Helwig from the Center for Social Enterprise to discuss the rich history of innovation in our province. So we are reaching out, we are expanding boundaries, and continue to learn during this Scenario 2 model. Again, really want to thank our teachers and all those who support them. Switching now to deep learning, and this might look like a drastic slide, but it is lifted from research from Jenkins did in 2012. It talks about the engagement dip over the grade levels. Kindergarten students, very enthusiastic, but over time, as we go through the years, you can see the engagement levels dropping. It surges a little bit in high school as they approach leaving the system, but it's still numbers that we do not want to see going forward. So, and you've heard this discussion before, we've embraced, to tackle the engagement issue, we've embraced a worldwide movement, deep learning, which is it is not a baby out with the bathwater, it's not a new program, it's a way of thinking. And at the core are the 6 C's of the 21st century learning. And surrounding that is changing up the pedagogy, forming learning partnerships, leveraging digital, and we've done that more than ever this last year for sure, and changing up the learning environments. Now, wrapping around that, you've got to change the school conditions for that to happen, but really important is for the district conditions for that to happen, and the entire system, the whole province, wrapping themselves around an effort to build skills along with learning content. As well, incorporated in this is non-traditional assessment practices. Numeracy and literacy will always be the cornerstone, but aspects like critical thinking, creativity, collaboration, communication, and the 2 supporting C's of the 6 C's, the ones that are catalysts, citizenship and character. And assessing those and promoting those will put the students of this province in good stead. And we've been leaning on this all the way through the pandemic. It has been, for us, the light in the tunnel. We know that eventually we're going to get through this tunnel, but for now, this is helping us in the tunnel. And just, I won't read this slide, but people often ask, what is deep learning? And these are just a few bullets. It is a concept and not a program. I just want to give you this was we were part of a worldwide group, Ecuador, parts of Southeast Asia, the United States, all over the globe. Every continent was represented recently, and we had a large number of Newfoundland Labrador educators in that space. And this was the presentation that was done at that session.
We have been engaged in our new Pedagogies for Deep Learning journey since March 2020. Through relentless, consistent messaging of our why and our actions, we are progressing with a strong focus on our vision and goals. Our focus on deep learning really helps create coherence in our already ongoing work of school development, responsive teaching and learning, and comprehensive school health. While things can get messy, our compass has been the deep learning tools. We have been deliberately using these as our anchor to support district staff with both learning and leading. We have experienced some success and we have encountered barriers. This truly is a learning journey. For some of our partners, this NPDL journey means a new spark has been ignited for learning, collaboration, and leadership. For some of us, our thinking has been interrupted. And for others, this NPDL journey brings feelings of discomfort and fear. But we are all learning our way forward. We continue to create a culture where we honor each other as learners. We continue to purposefully celebrate our small wins, and we are strongly committed to meeting and supporting each other. We gather virtually once a month as district staff for collaboration and learning. We have themed this time as Stories Around the Campfire. Storytelling is a way to maintain our oral tradition, find our voice, and share our learning. It's also a way to create an entertaining learning space. Campfire stories are often associated with warmth and feelings of comfort. We are creating the conditions for a safe virtual learning space where we can foster the growth and development of our district teams and feel calm and connected. We are creating the conditions for people to collaborate, to question, to listen skillfully, to honor voice, to make meaning, and to take ownership. Storytelling and campfires are at the heart of our culture, and as we strive to grow and develop a true learning culture, we know that our stories around the campfire will support us in engaging hearts and minds. As educators, we use every opportunity to design and facilitate learning for an increasingly diverse student population. This is also true for our district staff as adult learners. Our goal has been to honor each learner and to meet them where they are on our Good at Learning, Good at Life journey. We continue to focus on maximizing learning opportunities for all. We are using the 4 elements of deep learning and the Universal Design for Learning framework to model intentional design and facilitation, developing optimal learning environments, cultivating learning partnerships, presenting new learning in a variety of ways, and encouraging the growth and development of our district staff to collaboratively reimagine learning has helped us learn our way forward. Our district teams have been liberated to innovate and create their own action plans when considering support to schools beginning this journey. Our videos and our 120 Days infographic have been a platform to enhance engagement and learning for all district team partners. Our videos share relentless messaging of our vision and goals. They include the voice of our CEO as he learns and leads alongside our district team, as well as students and educators who make the purpose of the work so relevant. Our videos share and model new learning, set direction for next steps, and entertain and inspire. The 120-day infographic is an artifact created to communicate our progress and our plan. It is a conversation starter to build clarity and guide us when collaborating with learning partners. This infographic is based on the NPDL framework and rubric. It is a celebration of our progress to date with next steps to guide us forward. It is adapted from Protocol 37 100-Day School Deep Learning Plan. This formative information supported us as we reflected on the challenges we encountered and how we collaborated to respond. Together, both artifacts support us in sharing our vision and goals, identifying actions and next steps, building capacity with all stakeholders system-wide, and creating a shared understanding that we, all stakeholders, have a role in supporting, stimulating, and sustaining this learning plan. As educators reflect and ask questions about their practice, they are reimagining learning to create optimal learning environments that foster curiosity, develop the global competencies, bring joy, engage, and foster learning partnerships with students. We were challenged to hunt for sights and sounds of deep learning in our schools. Based on the evidence collected, we were able to identify early innovators, and we made it a priority to foster the growth and development of these educators. We created spaces for teachers from across the province to share their assessment stories around the campfire in open sessions for anyone who wanted to attend. School teams were invited to engage in Lead Learners projects, to design and engage in a Good at Learning, Good at Life project, and to share their learning and impact at a virtual summit. Teachers and district program staff collaborated on professional learning content for teachers. These early innovators created innovative and creative learning opportunities using the 4 elements of deep learning design. Inviting school staff and program staff to share the impact of their early work in an NPDL repository has enabled us to celebrate our wins, but also share with others so they can learn from our trailblazers. Creating multiple means for these innovators to learn and lead, and taking time to celebrate their work has enabled us to keep our good at learning, good at life vision moving forward.
Okay, so a lot of work in 1 year. I would like to single out our Assistant Director, Student Services, Georgina Lake, for being the head of this initiative. Deep Learning and her team put this product together, but they've been also doing an incredible amount of work. You can see some of the artifacts embedded in that video. It's something that we've done over a year of the pandemic. You note the start date, March 2020, just when everything went and changed in our world. But we made a strategic decision that despite the pandemic, we were going to move forward with this initiative. And there was enough momentum built over this year, and I really want to celebrate Georgina's contribution for heading this up. We're very enthused, and there's only room to go up. We've got 99 of 254 schools now launched on this, and we'll phase in the rest over the next couple of years. And we'll continue to build partnerships. Some examples, and this is a tweet by Michael Fulham, who is one of the few esteemed educational researchers with that level of profile on a global stage. And he basically is tweeting that why are there so many good examples coming from Newfoundland and Labrador these days? Because the teachers and students are working together with the right tools and supported by the system. And I make it a habit in my Twitter to go and look around for good examples of deep learning and highlight them. And it's amazing the plethora of good examples that have been occurring over these last number of months. Good example here. Now this particular tweet here is something that is shared worldwide. This is the actual NPDL network. There are some 10,000 educators as part of this community. And here Cloud River Academy is being featured for a brilliant idea that came from students and staff there for an Indigenous Alliance group. And they had a great outing together. And this is a good example of what's been happening in our fine province. Another example here, we have Brother Rice Celtics social studies class on the steps of the Colonial Building, a site where many important decisions were made for Newfoundlanders and Labradorians. And as I say, some 99 schools are well launched on this program and adopting this approach. So it has been something positive for us to focus on. Not every jurisdiction in the world decided to proceed with their deep learning initiative, even within the community of NPDL. We heard that on the conference call the other day with partners from around the world. And those that did not did regret it, and we're very proud of our educators for doing that in the face of troubling conditions from the worldwide pandemic, but we've moved forward. So that's summary on the deep learning initiative. Very important to highlight that because we've gone almost just over a year now. And finally, I'll summate by highlighting Administrative Professional Week and our very own administrative professional, my unofficial boss. Apologies to the chair, Elaine Cross, who keeps me on the straight and narrow. Thank you so much, Elaine. And for all the school secretaries and other administrative professionals out there, you are the nucleus of the schools. You are the nerve center. You keep things hopping and driving, and thank you for your work. And that, Chair, is Director's report.
Thank you very much, Tony. Any questions? I think it's a good broad base of an assessment of where we're to in a lot of ways. If I don't see anything, I've got to definitely say thank you to our staff and our senior staff and our staff right across the province and the schools in all the separate places, because it's a challenge to have to pivot to all these new things that COVID has placed on us. But I was just thinking that I need to really analyze, because when I'm dealing and interacting with some of our staff, they have these smiles on their face, and they have this energy and enthusiasm, and it's clearly coming out of something that they're doing, and it is in the area of deep learning, I hope, and not artificially induced in this COVID times, but it's contagious, and it's the only thing these days that's positive and contagious. It's a good movement in education to move forward as opposed to what we're having to deal with it. So thank you very much for your leadership, Tony. Thank you very much for your senior leadership around the table. And thank you for the people taking on the challenge with our teachers and our support staff around the province for doing that. Thank you. I think I'm going to say it at this time as well, because it's in the same vein, and Tony did allude to it within the administrative staff point of view. But I do also want to thank the volunteers in the province during Volunteer Week for all the efforts they do. The board members around this table have put in the hours of time to commit to this particular piece. And not only in those areas, the supports that our schools get by the parents and all the unsung heroes that are out there that actually put in hours and hours and hours to make sure that our system works. A big thank you from us. It's recognized, perhaps not as often as it should be, but it certainly is recognized that the system would not work in the way it does if we didn't have all these players involved. So thank you for those commitments. Next order of business on the agenda is our reports, committee reports. And today we only have one committee report, because the previous two of the committees haven't met since our last virtual meeting. So the Finance and Operations Committee, and I'm going to call on our chair of the committee, Steve Tessier, trustee, to bring the report on behalf of the Finance and Ops.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. This is from the Finance and Operations Committee report from the April 15th meeting. In attendance were yourself, Chair Price, and Trustees Lee, Carter, George, Elliott and Bennett, as well as our CFO, Terry Hall, and a couple of his senior staff were there, and the Director, Mr. Stack. So thank you all for that, and I'd like to take an opportunity again to thank Terry and all of his staff for all of their hard work and heavy lifting they've been doing over the last few months, getting Chromebooks out in the hands of the students and making sure that our buses are running on time. And it's a heavy load, and it certainly doesn't go unnoticed from this committee that all the work you do. So thank you very much for that. The first motion is an update on our quarterly budget status for the period ending December 31st, 2020. Motion number one is the board approve the revised quarterly budget status update for the period ending December 31st, 2020, as recommended by the Finance and Operations Committee. So moved.
Can I get a seconder for that? Seconded by John George. Any questions within the trustee piece? Hearing none, all in favor of the motion? Aye. Those against? Motion carries. Thank you.
Second motion is coming out of a St. John City easement for Bishop Abraham in the Bishop's College area. As most know, that was sold a few years back to facilitate a seniors home, but the city would like to sort of update some of that area there and put in some walkways. So the second motion is that the board approve the easements as required for the City of St. John's to upgrade the Bishop Abraham Trail Network as recommended by the Finance and Operations Committee. So moved.
Can I get a seconder for that motion? Seconded by Trustee Ray Bennett. Any discussion, questions? Hearing none, all in favor? Aye. Those against? Motion carries. Thank you.
The next one is the sale of our former Our Lady of Labrador School. The board approved the sale of our former Lady of Labrador for $20,000, subject to ministerial approval, as recommended by the Finance and Operations Committee. So moved.
Can I get a seconder for that motion? Seconded by Wintz. Carter, trustee. Any discussion? Hearing none. All in favor? Aye. Those against? Motion carries.
The next one is in the same vein. This is a transfer of St. Agnes School to the town of Pooch Cove. The board approved the sale of the former St. Agnes School in Pooch Cove to the town of Pooch Cove for a nominal consideration, including the district's legal costs, subject to ministerial approval, as recommended by the Finance and Operations Committee. So moved.
Can I get a seconder to that motion? So Guy Elliott seconds. Any questions? Discussion? Hearing none. All in favor? Aye. Those against? Motion carries.
Motion number 5 is the transfer of land to the town of Deer Lake for a medical clinic at Elmwood Complex. The board approved the sale of the land at the rear of Elmwood Schools to the town of Deer Lake in exchange for the town undertaking site improvements as agreed between the town and the district and illustrated in the concept plan, subject to ministerial approval, as recommended by the Finance and Operations Committee. So moved.
Can I get a seconder for that motion? Seconded by Jean. Discussion? Hearing none. All in favor? Those against? Motion carries.
The next one is the relinquish Crown Land Grant, English Harbour West. The board approved the relinquishing of the unused grant in English Harbour West back to the Crown as recommended by the Finance and Operations Committee. So moved.
Seconded by John George. Discussion, questions? Hearing none. All in favor? Aye. Those against? Motion carries.
And the next one is the sale of St. Teresa's in Port au Choix. The board approved the sale of former St. Teresa's Port au Choix for $55,000, subject to ministerial approval, as recommended by the Finance and Operations Committee. So moved.
Seconder, Wintz Carter. Discussion, questions? Hearing none, seeing none. All in favor? Aye. Against? Motion carries.
And the last one before the blanket recommendation is the purchase and lease of photocopiers. That the board approve the purchase of up to $800,000 inclusive of net HST worth of replacement copy, print, duplication technology from Xerox under the provincial RFP and arrange the necessary lease and financing with the 5-year amortization term with such leasing finance subject to ministerial approval as recommended by the Finance and Operations Committee. So
do we have a seconder? Seconded against John George. Questions, discussion? Hearing none. All in favor? Aye. Those against? Motion carries.
And the last one is the blanket recommendation covering the rest of the minutes of the meeting. The board approved the Finance and Operations Committee report of April the 15th, 2021 as presented. So moved.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. It's a discussion item 4.9 in the minutes of the meeting, and we, if I remember correctly, we discussed this at our January meeting. And there was an item as well that we had discussed, and I think the intention was for the chair of the committee to take it back to the committee and formulate a motion as well to bring back to the board. We talked about the virtual meetings, and I think if we go back and review, we had the discussion, and I think that the chair of the committee at the time offered to break to draft the motion to bring to the table. But we had the discussion, and I think you and I agreed on whether or not there was consensus around the table. But there were a number of trustees who spoke in favor of the option to have some of our meetings virtually as opposed to all of them in person in St. John's. So I'm assuming it was just overlooked, and this is the first time that we've met since then in person. And I'd certainly like to see that added to the agenda for the Finance and Operations Committee for their next meeting to bring to our next board meeting.
Yep, there's no problem with putting it on the agenda of the Finance Committee for review again.
Yeah, Mr. Chair, we'll have that on the next agenda meeting so we can have a discussion on it.
Okay, thank you. Any further discussion, questions? Hearing none, all in favor of the adoption of the report? Minutes. Those against? Motion carries. Thank you. Next order of business on the agenda is the specialist committee reports, obviously with our virtual meeting just recently, and there's no reports on school foundation, education foundation, or the school milk report was tabled at the last meeting. So we do have one item that is that was raised by a trustee, and it's obviously in the season that we're in, and we've been through and we've been going through. It's the trustee political activity policy review. And as all the trustees around the table know, and as you get the sense from the reports from our subcommittees, most of the business on a detailed review basis goes through subcommittees so that we can refine the topic, bring it with recommendations to the full board as a whole, have a discussion if required, and make a decision. So I know Trustee Burden has raised this as an issue, so I'll give him a chance to put the intention that it would be sent back to committee. Trustee Burden.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Just to remind the trustees who are at the table and who might not have been at the table, back in 2019, I think it was, and you can correct me if I'm wrong, somebody can correct me, we reviewed our policy as it relates to political activity for trustees, and it was just ahead of the provincial election back in 2019, I think that it was, and if I'm not mistaken, where we landed was that in order to be able to participate in an election, a general election or a municipal election, sitting school board trustees would have to resign as trustees. And if that's incorrect, the best thing for you to do is to stop me now, because that's my understanding.
No, and again, this review process that we're going to undertake will take care of that.
Yeah.
But the intent is there's a difference between a provincial election and a municipal election.
Yeah.
The provincial component of it clearly is once you get through a nomination and you're nominated and you're in the open piece, there's political conflict of interest in being in that position and being a stakeholder on the board. Now you can resign and then be reappointed or do whatever the process was, but that was the piece. In a municipal situation, the conflict isn't the same because the municipalities don't have any influence over the decisions or activity of the board, all right, in that same context. So they're not the same historically. Now, but we can review that as part of this review process to the executive.
Yeah, and I think given where we've just been, with the focus that's been on the provincial election, we need to do that, because I'm a pretty keen observer of stuff, and I've seen people from different professions, whether they be healthcare practitioners, nurses or whatever, educators, even it appears that educators are involved in political leadership in this province. I've seen not only municipal councillors, but municipal leaders take leave from their positions to run in provincial elections. So I guess my question is what makes us any different, and that doesn't have to be answered today, but it'll be answered and investigated through the process, because we all have other things in our lives besides being school board trustees. There's an upcoming municipal election, and I think we need to clarify and revisit and make sure we're doing the right thing before that, because maybe some of us want to throw our hat in that ring and be involved. So I think it's a good idea to go back and have a second look, given where we've just been.
Trustee Lee.
I'm moving that item 7.4, trustee political activity policy review, be referred to the executive committee for further discussion. Begging a seconder.
Seconded by Trustee Gill.
And just to point out, we will need to look at the current legislation, why that thing is there, where it came from, can it be changed, if so, how it can be changed, why it applies to some bodies and not others. So there's a bit of unwrapping to do there. So it is the appropriate group to look through that, I think.
Okay. Any further commentary from the trustees? None? All in favor?
Aye.
Those against? Motion carries. Thank you. Our next item on the agenda is the correspondence in and out from the district. There are a number of items there, and as people who may have tuned in before, we give the opportunity for trustees, if they have any questions related to the correspondence, to raise them now. Any questions associated with the correspondence? Hearing none. Okay, that's good. So that concludes our open board meeting for today. Again, I would like to reiterate and thank the numerous hours of volunteers that have taken, have committed to our organization, both at the school level, parent level, board level, right across the system. It's not often they get recognized, but they should be recognized, because without them, the lube is not there to make the systems work. So thank you very much to our staff again, and look forward to our next opportunity to get together. Can I get a motion to adjourn? It's moved by Trustee Lee, seconded by Trustee Carter. All in favor? Motion carries.